Welcome back to my channel. My name's Ashley Aireonna, and what an embarrassing loss by the 49ers. What an amateur, disappointing performance where they just didn't show up. The funny thing is, if I would have told you going into the game after learning that Nick Bosa was going to be out, that Purdy was going to be out, if I would have said, the score was 10-38 Packers, I think that people would have believed that, and it would have felt less bad the way that I anticipated it. I thought, there's not really a chance with Brandon Allen. The 49ers are going to go out there and give their best effort, but they're going to have trouble stopping the run, which they did. But I think what was most like frustrating from a fan perspective is that they were actually in the game and they had multiple opportunities to win this game. Green Bay was letting them stick around. Green Bay actually was putting up like a typical 49ers performance where they came out, that first drive was such a Kyle Shanahan drive where you just dominate time of possession, you end up scoring the touchdown, and you look like, okay, like watching the game, the first possession that Green Bay had, you thought Green Bay is going to score 50 on the 49ers because they just made that look easy. The defense can't stop them for shit. Josh Jacobs broke like 10 tackles in the first half alone. Um, Horrible. But then, and I'll break this down more slowly, but the story of the game that was the most frustrating was actually then after giving up another touchdown, so the Green Bay Packers had 17, the 49ers started to get a tiny bit of momentum. And Green Bay was really scoring. They were kind of like their drives were halting. And for a moment going into halftime when the 49ers scored, they almost gave you hope that they were going to come back out and maybe, lap them. Kyle Shanahan likes to say, if you can score right before halftime, then get the ball back after halftime. That's lapping a team. And when I was watching that, I was like, oh my God, are they going to lap the Packers? Like, is there a way for them to get into this? And I actually tweeted out, I said, don't get excited. This game is over. Like, and people were saying, like, oh, you're being negative. You're being negative. And I was actually more just talking to myself because I was getting excited. Like, okay, is it possible? Is it possible? Brandon Allen, doesn't look that bad aside from the fact that he has a broken hand that they didn't report. Could they? And honestly, they could have, except for the fact that the 49ers played the most undisciplined, horrible game of football that I've ever seen. They didn't play up to an NFL standard. And it makes me feel like at the end of this year, there's no rebuilding, retooling, keeping the majority of the people and just adding in some good elements to go on a run again. They need to tear it down. Kyle Shanahan needs to go. His voice is no longer impactful. If you're not coaching it, you're letting it happen. There's no way that they killed themselves scoring one touchdown. That was another reason why I said, like, don't get too excited. That touchdown that they scored, George Kittle was the one that ran it in, by the way. He was one of the only guys that showed up today. But it was like the hardest fought touchdown ever because anytime they did one single thing good, they got a false start. They got a holding penalty. They had 12 men on the field. They moved before the ball was snapped. They didn't move once once the clock was down. Like the amount of penalties in this game was so frustrating that it was laughable. But it's inexcusable for Kyle Shanahan to let this veteran team, this team of old players, commit so many penalties and consistently, time after time, shoot themselves on the foot. They need to get rid of, they need to completely redo this team. And I don't know, why did they bring back Deebo Samuel? This offseason, people were discussing when it came to paying Brandon Ayuk, should they move off of Deebo? Should they move off of Brandon Ayuk? They can't afford to keep both of them. What should they do? Yada yada. Maybe they can scrap it and restructure and extend Deebo, and push the money into the future because then they can have both of them for this one last Super Bowl run. Deebo looks like a shell of himself, and he needs to only be on the field for kick returns. That's the only thing he did good was his 87-yard kick return. And like I said, the 49ers always shoot themselves in the foot. So immediately after returning it, it gets called back for a holding penalty. And instead of being all the way on the Packers side of the field, almost in the freaking red zone, the 49ers go back and they're on their own like 10-yard line. It's absolutely ridiculous. But aside from that, I mean, Debo needs to he can't run the ball. He's averaging less than 2.9 yards a carry this game. He averaged -1 yards a carry last game. Debo he needs to not be used as a running back. It's absolutely insane. And then Christian McCaffrey, anyone with eyes, no offense, Kyle Shanahan, anyone with eyes can see that Christian McCaffrey is not the Christian McCaffrey that he used to be. And he could still get that back. But he has bilateral Achilles tendonitis. They tried to rush him back so they could make a playoff run. They need to sit him for the rest of the year. I don't know if they're making it worse or if he just like is not in football shape and he doesn't have that extra gear that he had. But the holes aren't opening up because this offensive line sucks. And Christian McCaffrey can't make anything happen. He used to be able to run through tackles. He used to, if there was an open hole, like instead of getting 7 yards, he'd get 20. Like he was the big play guy. He's no longer doing that. He averaged less than 3 yards carry in this game. He averaged 3 yards a carry last week. So he's averaging about 2.9 yards a carry since he's been back from his Achilles injury that is clearly still plaguing him. Meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey, like I said, had the majority of the targets in the last 3 games. Jordan Mason has only had five carries. By the way, in those 5, he's averaged today, he averaged 16 yards a carry. He's gotten 6 yards, 8 yards, 6 yards, and 16 yards in the last 4 games. Now, obviously, that would probably lower if he was getting a higher workload. But even when Christian McCaffrey was on the bench, completely unable to play for the first 10 weeks of the season, Jordan Mason was averaging 7 yards a carry in his good games, 6 yards a carry in his bad games. That's 3 yards more than Christian McCaffrey is right now. I don't know why Jordan Mason is not getting on the field. It's almost like Kyle Shanahan is just like so ego driven that he refuses to do it. He actually gave Jordan Mason the very last touch of the game, and Jordan Mason ended up getting hit back for like 20 yards. It was horrible. And the game was completely over. They were just snapping the ball. But it's frustrating to me that you can look in your own division and you go to the Lions, who have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They have such a 1-2 punch. And what was really working for Brandon Allen was throwing to the sideline. Like there was one quarter where Brandon Allen was kind of able to get the ball to the sideline, and that was really opening up the passing game. And those were the runs that were working too. Like the runs that were just Christian McCaffrey runs forward were getting immediately stuffed. Christian McCaffrey doesn't have the power to push through anymore. So it was just like negative plays that weren't working. And it's like less time, because I know so many people ended up blaming the defense, but that's just like you're killing your own offense. And then the defense is tired. Obviously, they're going to end up giving up big plays at the end of the game if they haven't had a second to freaking breathe because your offense can't stay on the field. I have no idea. They should be. Isaac Rendo has had a couple in the past when Chris McCaffrey's out. He had a couple bounce to the outside plays that went for like 70 yards, 75 yards. I think he has 3 of them that like went for huge plays. I don't know why they don't get more of him involved and have like Christian McCaffrey can be the third down running back, the red zone running back, but I don't know why they're not using more of Jordan Mason. When they use Jordan Mason, like they did in this game, he went for 16 yards in his first carry in this game. So I don't understand what Kyle Shanahan's obsession with continuing to play Debo Samuel, who dropped critical multiple passes, one of which went right through his hands and went for an interception right when the 49ers were just getting momentum. They're finally looks like they're having kind of some positive yardage, which like I said was a huge struggle for them because they could not move the ball at all. So anytime they were doing something good, it's like, oh my God, don't mess this up, don't mess this up. Bounces off Debo Samuel's hands into the defender. Green Bay runs it back to the red zone. They, end up snapping the ball and scoring a touchdown there. That's the story of the game. The Green Bay Packers scored touchdowns on 3 turnovers. I mean, the 49ers could not Brandon Allen was out there for some reason. And Brandon Allen, I will say, like I said, getting the ball to the outsides. I thought he had a strong arm. There was reports going into this game that Kyle Shanahan in the front office was excited about Brandon Allen because he could open up the offense compared to Brock Purdy, which is a whole problem on its own. I don't know why they're always trying. This organization is always trying to dogpile on their QB, but there was all these reports about this. Then Brandon Allen goes out in the first couple offensive drives for the 49ers. You're like, why the fuck is it Josh Dobbs playing? This guy sucks. He ended up playing well later on, but he's sucking at first. And I'm watching him, and he goes to like do a shovel pass to like a Patrick Mahomes style shovel pass to George Kittle. And Tom Brady, who's the announcer, goes, "Oh, he had to be careful just there because his non-throwing hand has a stint on it." And I was like, did I just hear that right? Like, is Brandon Allen injured? Is his hand injured? Is the quarterback that is filling in for our quarterback that has had now, by the way, 2 MRIs on his shoulder? I'll get to that. Brock Purdy has had 2 MRIs now. But is the quarterback that they chose also injured? And like, why have we not heard about this? Why have the 49ers been so bad at reporting injuries all year? And so I'm like, maybe I heard that wrong. Maybe I heard that wrong. They go again and they go to snap it, and he goes to run for a second because the packet's breaking down and the offensive line fucking sucks. And as he's holding it, he fumbles the football. And then they go, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. He's probably having a hard time holding on to it because he has a broken finger." And he broke it a couple weeks ago in practice. Apparently, he was being the scout team quarterback for the 49ers defense, and the backup center snapped the ball wrong. It hit his finger. He broke his finger. And so he was out there with a broken finger anytime that he needed to hold on to the football for a second because the offensive line was breaking down, or maybe guys weren't getting open. And you know how Brock Purdy, that's like a huge positive that he has, where he can, when the pocket is breaking down and no one's getting open, he can kind of like make time for a second. Brandon Allen would try to do that and then fucking lose the football because his other hand didn't work. And I was like, no offense to Brandon Allen, because like I said, I don't think he played horrible, all things considered. But you have a healthy quarterback, Josh Dobbs, who's he won, I think, 4 games with the Vikings. I think he won 2 in a row, lost one, and then won 2 in a row. He also was with the Arizona Cardinals last year, won games with the Cardinals. Josh Dobbs, I mean, I'm not saying he's like a franchise quarterback. Obviously, once he's played like more than 4 or 5 games with the team, the defenses, they have tape on him. They can, he's not the best. I'm not saying he's the best, but I'm saying he has 2 fucking freaking working hands. Why is he not out there? He also has legs. And like I said, a huge problem in this game was the offensive line immediately giving up pressure. And I thought Brandon Allen made the most of it, but I just don't understand. Does 2 fumbles, that's 2 critical turnovers that, once again, the Packers scored touchdowns on. They scored 21 points just on turnovers alone. Now, not all of that was Brandon Allen's fault. Some of it was, like I said, Deebo Samuel, special teams. It was a whole team disaster. But the defense needs to do their job. They need to be able to stop them. But just focusing on quarterback, I don't understand how we had a quarterback out there who had a broken finger. And then Kyle Shanahan was asked about it after the game. And I know a lot of people don't like Grant, but I asked for this to be asked because I was like, this is like, to explain this to me like I'm in 5th grade. Why would they have a guy who's injured, his hand, the only thing that's important for a quarterback who touches the football more than anyone else on the field is to be able to protect the football. If you win the turnover margin, your like chances of winning the game go up by like 99%. Especially, I mean, you need to come with all the guys that you had injured. You need to be able to control every other factor, right? And the 49ers lost every factor, by the way. They penalties, injuries, everything. They were horrible. But like, if you can control having a quarterback that has healthy hands, why would you not have that guy out there? I mean, I guess Josh Dobbs in practice must just be fucking horrible. But I wanted Kyle Shanahan to say that. Like, I wanted Kyle to go up there and be like, look, even with a broken hand, we thought Brandon Allen was going to give us the better chance to win. So I asked for him to be asked, like, why was this guy out there? And Kyle Shanahan scoffed at the question as if it was a stupid question and was like, there's no reason he shouldn't be out there. It was just a finger. It's not his throwing hand. Okay, well, multiple times he had to hold the ball with two hands, and multiple times in this game that you're scoffing at right now, your quarterback put the ball on the ground and the other team picked it up. So why are you scoffing? Like, why do you have an ego right now, Kyle? Like, you deserve to be fired. Your special teams fucking sucks. Why is that guy still employed? If you're not coaching it, if you're not changing it, you're allowing it to happen. And I don't even know if this is all Brian Schneider's fault because under Kyle Shanahan in general, if they fire Brian Schneider and hire someone else, that's going to be the third special teams coordinator because Kyle special teams has sucked under Kyle Shanahan's entire regime. When they drafted Jake Moody in the third round, mind you, a guy who can't make kicks consistently, they asked people were asking him and he was like, "Oh, they're asking him basically, why the fuck did you draft a kicker this high? This is insane." And he basically said, "Oh, I just let Brian Schneider do the whole thing. I hate watching special teams. I never even try to look at it. Hopefully, now that we drafted this guy, I don't have to look at it for another 10 years." Kyle, you're a head coach. You're not an offensive coordinator. Your job isn't just to care about the offensive plays. Your job is to be passionate about every phase of the football, every the defense, the special teams, the offense. Especially your team isn't the team that it was 3, 4, 2, even last year. Maybe when your quarterback is firing on all cylinders, healthy, you have Nick Bosa out there killing it, and the whole defensive line is getting pressure, getting multiple sacks a game. Your wide receivers are all hungry and acting like stars. Debo Samuel's having, the 2021 year he had. Maybe during that time, you can go, oh, if special teams kind of is a weak link on the team, that's okay because we have all these other phases that are like way beyond average. They're like so good. Okay. Well, that's no longer the team you have. And it's your job as the coach to be able to assess your team and know where you're at. Your team has played to the Super Bowl or to the NFC Championship in every single game aside from 2020. And by the way, I don't want this to be considered a 2020 season. I know that David Lombardi is trying to say that that's what it is. No, this team sucked before the injuries got a hold of it. This team has sucked and it struggled with penalties and it's been undisciplined. This game, with everyone they had out, Trent Williams, last minute, ankle. He flew with the team. Kyle Shanahan spoke after the game. He woke up and it hurt even worse than it did last week. So he ended up not going. Nick Bosa didn't even fly with the team because he has 2 hip injuries and 2 oblique injuries. Freaking Jordan Mason is out there not playing, and Christian McCaffrey with bilateral Achilles tendonitis is. Brock Purdy can't play. With all the injuries, the 49ers, if they would have played a clean, if they would have not turned over the football, honestly, even if they would have turned over the football, if they would have caught Jordan Love's interceptions, because Jordan Love, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He's not there yet. He'll give the defense opportunities. He gave Renardo Green an opportunity, gave Jair Brown an opportunity. They could not come down with the football, and it was about the easiest. Like it was. Remember the Rams? Not Jimmy Ward. I'm blanking. Jaquassy Hart. It was that level of like in your hands. You have to catch this. This is like a season changing game right now for the 49ers. Luckily, we'll get into it. The rest of the NFC West sucks too. So they're kind of still in the same situation that they were going into this game when it comes to playoff wise, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm just saying, like, if the 49ers would have just played more disciplined football, they could have won this game. The Packers were doing what the 49ers do, and they were letting the 49ers hang around. When it was 17-3, 17-10, like during that entire time, if the 49ers just didn't shoot themselves in the foot, having back-to-back 12 men on the field, meaning they got called for 12 men on the field, and then immediately, the very next play, didn't fix the problem. And Kyle Shanahan spoke about this after the game and was like, tried to say that the first one was on Green Bay because Green Bay, like, tried to be tricky and, like, they saw that the 49ers were trying to get a guy off the field, so they snapped the ball really quickly. And it's like, yeah, that's football. You should do that. You do not do that, Kyle. You don't. If you see that there's an opportunity for you to get an extra 10-yard penalty on the other team, you wouldn't do that. Teams all across the NFL are doing that. Hate to break it to you. That's not against the rules. It's not bad. It's the same thing. Jordan Love threw it was an interception, but it was a free play, so it didn't count on like a false start. Like, I'm sorry, you have to take advantage of these opportunities. I don't know why Kyle is acting like Matt LaFleur was doing something so, unsportsmanlike. Like that's very football. So, anyways, the first time it happened, apparently it was because they were trying to sub someone off the field, and Green Bay went and snapped the ball really quickly. But then the second one, Kyle even says, "Oh yeah, that one was on us." So immediately after that happening, immediately after, instead of being like, okay, guy, get the fuck off the field now, they like forgot how to count or something. The whole first half, Tom Brady was sitting there and he was like, so Nick Bosa isn't in the game. Hopefully Nick Sorensen starts to adjust because for some reason he's not doing anything. And we're just going to cross our fingers and Nick Sorensen is going to start to disguise his defenses and do something creative. Because, by the way, Tom Brady was giving Matt LaFleur so much praise for how creative his run game was, how dominant Josh Dobbs was. Josh Dobbs broke some record the last like for the most amount of rushing yards in one game. The last person to do it was Justin Fields in the year that he was drafted for the Bears, which is hilarious that Justin Fields had that stat anyways, being that he's a quarterback. But Josh Dobbs broke literally a rushing record on the 49ers today. That's how bad they were. And like with them being that bad for all the way up until the middle of the second or the third quarter, you kind of thought the 49ers might be able to kick in a gear. And they just kept shooting themselves in the foot and they couldn't do it. Like I said, no Bosa, no Moody. The 49ers held the opposing quarterback to 108 passing yards. They only gave up one big explosive. They forced three and outs, critical possessions. They forced the Packers to get off the field. They forced field goals when it should have been touchdowns. I don't think that you can blame the defense on this. Obviously, the score got out of hand at the end, but I think for the majority of this game, the 49ers offense was failing this team. And they've consistently last week at home they scored 17 points. This week they scored 10 points. Like you're not going to win a football game like that. The only offensive player that really showed up today, I think, was George Kittle. I guess you could say Juwan Jennings. He was okay, but he didn't get many targets. And like I said, Chris McCaffrey, he needs to get the fuck off the field. He shouldn't be on the field this much. One, for his health, the 49ers have a guaranteed contract for him. There's no use with where they're at right now in risking further injury to his Achilles. And second of all, he's literally not performing better than Jordan Mason. He's averaging half as many yards per carry. Just frustrating. Debo, this is what I said. I said 49ers had chances to get back into this game and make it competitive, but they made critical mistakes. The Saubert hold on Debo Samuel's long return, Debo Samuel's drop that led to an interception. To me, that really solidified that the game was over. Then Brandon Allen fumbling twice. This was before the game was over. I wrote they had nine penalties, giving the Packers 77 yards by the end of the game. So I wrote this in the fourth quarter, and before the game ended, they committed 3 more penalties because they actually ended up having 12 penalties at the end of the game. So when I wrote this, they only had 9. Still, he only had 9. They had 2 interceptions that were dropped. Just like complete missed opportunities. Same thing in the third quarter. This was consecutive. I'm not taking any plays out. Consecutive plays, the last 7 offensive plays for the 49ers. Incomplete pass, incomplete pass, incomplete pass. Negative 1 yard negative 1 yard run. Incomplete pass, fumble loss. Like you're not going to win when you're doing that on offense. And like I don't think it's okay that Kyle Shanahan got to go out in his press conference and basically blame the run defense, and that like certain reporters are going to go out and talk about how this defense really needed to like hold it together for this team. I agree, and I think that they did for the most part up until the very end when they crumbled. Like the defense didn't do well. They gave up literally 20 I think it was 20 tackles. 10 were just yeah, Packers running back broke 10 tackles in the first half, 20 tackles in the entire game. I mean, they lost to Green Bay by 28 points. The defense obviously sucked, but like if you go all the way till the third quarter, the 49ers offense had plenty of opportunities to get in the game. And Kyle Shanahan just kept getting outcoached. His team kept penalizing themselves. The offensive line, giving up sacks, giving up pressure, committing false starts. Like you're not going to win that way. Um, so I was very frustrated. I think it's important to talk about really quickly the injuries. Like I said, right before the game, Trent Williams was ended up being ruled out. Brock Purdy ruled out at not yesterday, but the day before yesterday, along with Nick Bosa. The scary thing about Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan is yet to go into detail about this, but let me read this. I have quotes from Jay Glazer, who came out today. I feel like this is important. San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy underwent an MRI early last week after sustaining a shoulder injury in the team's Week 11 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Initially, the team believed the injury only required rest, remaining optimistic for his availability in this Packers game. And this is, if you guys remember, I was updating you throughout the week. He didn't participate, or he reported that he had shoulder pain Sunday night and Monday. It was locking up on him. Tuesday they have an off day, but Brock Purdy was doing rehab. Wednesday Wednesday he goes out there. He can't throw the football at all. Then Thursday they go out there and they're anticipating that he's going to be able to throw like through some. They thought it was maybe a shoulder strain or an AC joint sprain. If you remember, Jordan Mason suffered an AC joint sprain earlier on this season, and he was able to play. Obviously, he doesn't throw a football, but he's getting hit in the shoulder and landing on his shoulder. So they believed that Brock Purdy was going to be able to throw on Thursday. All reports from people at practice said Brock Purdy went out through about 4 passes, was trying to rotate his arm, had a trainer working on it, ended up leaving practice, going to the rehab room. When Kyle Shanahan talked about it on Friday and ended up ruling Brock Purdy out, they said that it had locked up on his shoulder, locked up on him. Actually, during the Seahawks game, he had to do extra warming up throughout the game to try to keep it loose. It kept locking up and cramping up on him, and it just got worse throughout the week. And then that's why they rolled him out for today's game, or the game that they just played against the Packers. So they gave him an MRI on Monday. The reason they thought he would be good is apparently nothing showed up on the MRI. Well, then Thursday, and they didn't report this to the media. This came out this morning from Jay Glazer. On Thursday, after they attempted to have Brock pass in practice and it kept locking up on him, they got nervous and they had him take another MRI. So he took 2 MRIs now. They didn't report this second MRI at all. Kyle didn't talk about it until today after the game. But then today, it comes out that Brock Purdy is up in the air to play against Buffalo next week because apparently on this MRI, the injury that like something that would require surgery or be keeping Brock Purdy out isn't showing up on the MRI. So they have no idea what's going on with Brock Purdy right now. And that's fucking terrifying because the 49ers are considering paying this guy $65 million. He had elbow surgery year ago now, a little more than a year ago now. And you have to think like he's had it's all in the same arm. He's had multiple shoulder, elbow, arm injuries to his throwing arm. Like, do you really want to risk signing a guy like that to a 4, 5, 6-year deal? Like franchise quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes got a 10-year deal. I don't think they'd give that to Brock Purdy, but probably anything between 4 and 6 years is very normal, especially because the 49ers like to spread out their deals to make them, even though it's like a large deal, it's cheaper if it's spread out over more years, obviously. I don't know. I'm very nervous about what's going on with Brock Purdy. He did fly with the team today just to be there for emotional support and to be able to like look over the plays as they were happening with Brandon Allen. But Jay Glazer goes on to say, however, after Purdy was severely limited during practices, the 49ers ruled him out on Friday. His status for next week's game against the Buffalo Bills remains up in the air because Kyle Shanahan is basically saying, I don't know why this guy can't play. Like, according to the MRI, he should just be able to push through the pain. There's nothing like broken or torn in there. And Brock Purdy's going out there and he's like, it feels really, really wrong. It feels fucked up. It's not. And I think, by the way, that the organization or Kyle Shanahan hinting that Brock Purdy isn't tough is bullshit. Because Brock Purdy played all the Seahawks game with that shoulder locking up on him. So whatever injury it was, he was able to push through the pain then. He also literally tried to play through his torn Tommy John elbows injury during the NFC Championship game a couple years back. He's played through multiple rib injuries. Brock Purdy is a tough guy. Now, I'm like I said, I'd be hesitant to pay him if you don't know what's wrong with his shoulder and it keeps popping up that it's hurting him. But to question his toughness, I think they need a CAT scan, something that can see more micro tears in there, see if there's some sort of tissue or healing. Like he's obviously done a ton of shoulder and bicep and tricep rehab because all the muscles around your elbow, when you get elbow surgery, you have to like relearn how to use your arm. So I don't know if maybe like he's been over the last year and a half since his surgery, if he's been using his arm differently, or if it was like a specific play. Kyle says that Brock Purdy doesn't know exactly when it happened. Um, some people speculate that Brock Purdy looked off from the very beginning of the Seahawks game, and maybe it was hurting him actually before. Now, Brock Purdy himself hasn't talked to the media, so everything we've heard has been through Kyle Shanahan or through someone who has to connect with the front office. Jay Glazer goes on to say, on Sunday morning, uh, Jay Glazer revealed that Purdy underwent a second MRI after experiencing significant difficulty throwing during Thursday's practice. He ultimately left the session to receive treatment for his sore shoulder, canceling his post practice press conference with reporters, casting serious doubt in his availability. What people don't know is following his rehab on Thursday, the 49ers sent him to get a second MRI for his shoulder. It still has came up positive as far as what they were looking for. So they are remaining cautionary on his availability against the Buffalo Bills because they genuinely don't know what's going on or why he's hurt. So that's what's happening with Brock Purdy. Nick Bosa probably still not going to play against the Buffalo Bills. I doubt with two oblique strains and two hip injuries that he's going to be flying cross country. Trent Williams, they said that his attempt to be able to go this week, all the stuff that he did, whatever rest, rehab, pushing it, whatever he did, apparently he woke up today and it was the most painful that it's been since he got injured. So it's not like it's getting better. It's literally getting worse. Trent Williams ankle sprain. So I don't know if Trent Williams will be playing against the Bills. So it literally might be Brandon Allen again with his broken finger. And then that's where I was upset because I don't know why that wasn't reported. To me, the 49ers can get fined for leaving out injuries. They said on the broadcast that it happened during a practice. There was a bad snap, but that's terrifying. And then Aaron Banks, who played during this game but ended up leaving, suffered a concussion. So that's another huge issue. And then I think it was Jordan Elliott on the defensive line also suffered yes, Jordan Elliott and Aaron Banks both in the concussion protocol. So just to make injuries worse. Also, Ricky Pearsall at one point in the game was limping off of the game, but he did return to the game. So hopefully, whatever was going on with him isn't a huge deal. My recommendation is to start giving Deebo Samuel snaps to Ricky Pearsall. Those end arounds, I don't know why they're not going to Ricky. Ricky he's fast. He's faster than Deebo right now. He's fast. He has, not the biggest body, but he has a bigger body. He can try to catch the ball. They need to be targeting George Kittle way more. Deebo Samuel's getting about 10 targets per game and then 1 to 3 carries. They need to give all of his carries. He cannot run the football. They need to give all of his carries to Jordan Mason, and they need to start splitting up his snaps between Ricky and George Kittle. George Kittle needs more snaps, and Ricky should be involved more. In the one game that he was involved to, not against the Seahawks, but the game before that, he scored like a 75-yard touchdown. I have no idea why since then they haven't gone back to him because it worked. I don't know what sort of genius Kyle Shanahan is. To me, a genius can analyze who his best players are right now. And that doesn't mean that Christian McCaffrey isn't the best running back. It means Christian McCaffrey is injured right now. Doesn't mean Debo at one point didn't have way more talent than Ricky Pearsall, but Debo has shown you game after game after game. I mean, we're in week 12 now that he cannot produce anymore. So no offense, like you need to stop giving him the ball as much. He has not earned that. If this was any other guy, Debo Samuel would be in the doghouse, but he's like friends with Kyle Shanahan, so he doesn't have to suffer the consequences for like consistently putting up poor performances and like being undisciplined. And he got to go yell at the kicker to lock in. It's like, Debo, where are you? Like every time he does something wrong now, I feel like fans all over are like, Debo, lock in, Debo, lock in. Like, and it's like, dude, you do this to yourself. And these are the captains. I wonder if that's why they're not getting their targets diminished when they do falter. Because if this was happening with Ricky Pearsall, if this was happening with Jordan Mason, like those guys would never see the field again. Heck, they performed well when given opportunities, and they're still barely seeing the field. But for some reason, Debo can cause multiple interceptions, get negative yards, get 0 yards after the catch. I was talking with a Packers content creator earlier this week, and they were like, yeah, Debo's not the traditional wide receiver, and the fact that he, sucks, he, he's not a good route runner and he can't run down the field really fast. But once you get the ball in his hands, he gets, yards after the catch. That's the thing with Debo, right? And I was like, yeah, that's like what he's known for, but he doesn't do that this year. Look up his stats right now. He's like one of the last in the league in yards after the catch. So like the Yak Bros aren't the Yak Bros right now. Only one of the Yak Bros is showing up is George Kittle, who does need more targets. But yeah, it's just all around very, very frustrating. They need to completely re re readjust this personnel. Fred Warner, I think he's probably playing injured because he's not playing like the Fred Warner we know. They need to add to this defensive line in the offseason. They need to get rid of a lot of these guys. Leonard Floyd was a big acquisition. He got 1 sack in the game that was helpful, but in general, like without Nick Bosa, this defensive line can't get any pressure. They were getting run on. Jair Brown, I've talked about this before. Apparently, he stays up all night the night before games and plays video games. Fred Warner made a joke about this on his podcast and admitted that a lot of times before the game starts, Jair Brown will look really tired and lethargic. And the only reason he talked about this is one game, the Tampa Bay game, he apparently had like a lot of energy. And Fred Warner was like, oh yeah, I asked him, and he was like, made a joke like, hey, like I actually got some sleep tonight, so I like feel good. And like Fred Warner was telling the story kind of as like, oh, this is funny. And I was like, why the fuck is this guy on our team? This guy's you're admitting that him getting a good night's rest before the game is unusual for him. And I think that happened tonight because Jair Brown, where the hell were you? Why can't you bring down missed tackles is your middle name? Why can't you bring down anyone? Like it is embarrassing. That first Green Bay drive, Jair Brown gets embarrassed immediately. Immediately. So they need to look at safety because they're not going to keep Hufanga. He's just not, they're not going to pay him what he's going to get because he had that all pro season. He's not performing up to that level. They're not going to keep Hufanga. They need to move off Jair Brown. Renardo Green, I haven't moved off of. He's obviously a rookie and young. He didn't make that interception that I felt like he should have had, but I thought he did a decent job at kind of locking up the secondary. Like I just think he's like a third. I don't think if Charvarius Ward was there, he wouldn't be the starter. But I think for a young rookie first year, I think Renardo Green still has promise. Hopefully Charvarius Ward will be back. I did see some people being like, tell him just to take the time with his family. The season's over. I don't think the 49ers are going to mail it in like that. I understand having that mindset, just being like so frustrated and done with this team. But I do think that Travis Ward might play next week against the Bills, and that'll help. DeAndre Lenore limped off the field at one point, but he returned to the game, so that's good. I'm gonna check some comments now, but those were my initial takeaways from the game. Mustafa, yes, Huff is out. Mustafa's sorry, this is the very first one that I see from Papa J, but Mustafa, he hits hard. Now he doesn't hit everything. He's not perfect. He's younger. Most linebackers nowadays it takes them 3 to 5 years to really get into the flow of the NFL. It's completely different the way that they play linebacker in the NFL versus college. Mustafa's very young, but he's one of the only guys, especially noticeable because of how young he is. He's one of the only guys who is really, really tough and physical on defense, and can hit hard. He can whiff. He can miss some tackles. He can whiff. He gets too excited, too amped up. He'll miss a guy trying to go for a tackle and he'll fall on the ground by himself. Like he's not perfect, but when he hits hard. And the 49ers missed Dre Greenlaw so much. By the way, there wasn't any updates this week on Dre Greenlaw being elevated. Tomorrow on Monday, Kyle Shanahan usually talks around 3:30 to give any other injury updates from the game. I'll see if I can ask about Dre Greenlaw. I imagine when they do elevate him, I don't think he'll play the same week he's elevated because with IR, you actually have 3 weeks that you can like practice. And you guys have to know, like, February was not that long ago when he tore his Achilles and he plays a really physical position. Now they did say the last time they gave an update on Dre Greenlaw that he was actually assimilating practices on his own with like trainers. So he's doing activity, but he's just not able to actually do it with the team at like full speed yet. But I'll see if I can ask about him again because that was not last week, but the week before. So it's been 2 weeks and he's been working with the trainers. I don't think he flew because they don't want to add any inflammation or anything. I don't think he'll be back um, against Buffalo, but maybe the home game against the Bears, I could definitely see that. And having him against the Lions, like going back to their running game and how physical and like energetic and youthful the Lions team is, it would be incredible to have a guy like Dre Greenlaw back. Not to make me talking about Mustafa Dre Greenlaw, but that's a good comp for him. I mean, I'm trying to say he's he's not obviously on Dre Greenlaw's level, but he's one of the only guys that like shows me that he has that like line crossing, level to him where he can really bring the physicality of the defense that the 49ers used to be known for, and now they're just not. And then how awful is Campbell in coverage? He basically is second most tackles in the season. And then people said he's slow. Yeah. Devondre Campbell's horrible. He is the guy that when I said the back-to-back 12 men on the field, Devondre Campbell. You guys are talking about how he's slow like during the actual football game. He's slow to just walk off the field. He literally didn't get off the field in time, and then the 49ers had a penalty. So he's not just slow when the game is actually going on and he's supposed to be tackling someone or, covering. He's also just slow in general to get off the field. I feel bad because I do know he had one of his biggest games last week against the Seahawks, but like biggest games in his later career. Obviously, when he was younger, he did well, but I disagree. Jordan Mason fumbles, can't block. He's a mid RB. See, I can do what they do to Brock. Oh, maybe this is like a joke, I think, because people say the same thing with Brock, like, oh, he's just a system quarterback. This could be a joke, but I'm going to take it as face value, although Sivo's like a regular commentator in my thing, so I don't think he agrees to this. But Jordan Mason was second, led the league only behind Derrick Henry in yards per carry. This when Christian McCaffrey was not on the field and Jordan Mason was the main running back, Jordan Mason once again was second, only behind Derrick Henry in the league out of all the running backs, out of Josh Jacobs, the running back we just played right now, the great running back Josh Jacobs, over Jahmyr Gibbs and now I'm blanking both the Lions running backs. Out of all the good running backs in the NFL, Jordan Mason was number 2 in rushing yards, only behind Derrick Henry up until he got taken off the field for no reason when Christian McCaffrey came back. I mean, that's like when people talk about like fireable offenses, it is a fireable offense. I like for Kyle to lose last week to the Seahawks when they won against they had a winning game plan against the Seahawks. They won running Jordan Mason and Isaac Rendo. And then to go into or to have Seattle come to Levi's and lose to the Seahawks and not play your winning formula the way you just won, to me is a fireable offense. To go into this game, to have it be a close game, to have Jordan Mason's first carry, he only had, I think, like 3 in this game, whole entire game. But his first carry went for 16 yards. And then he did not see the ball again until the very end of the game, like the last play of the game. He ran for 16 yards. And you have Christian McCaffrey who's averaging 3 yards a carry. It is to me, and then you add on the penalties and the 12 men on the field and the special teams blunders and not knowing your personnel and not being able to choose which quarterback is healthy to actually play in the game. Like these things are fireable offenses for Kyle Shanahan. Like obviously it can go to the individual players and you can like get mad at Debo. But it's like, okay, well, why is Debo on the field? Why is Debo getting the ball so much? That's not Debo's not in control of that. No offense, Brendan Allen, he's not in control of that. The only reason he's starting is because he's just yes sir, yes, yes sir, yes ma'am to whatever the fuck Kyle Shanahan says. That's why he's participating in this game. That's how much Kyle Shanahan loves his system. How much Kyle Shanahan thinks his system is just the best system, which isn't even his system, it's his dad's system. Then now the whole entire NFL basically runs, so it's no longer creative. Like that was created 10 years ago when it was new, when defenses hadn't adjusted to it. Now you have disciples all over. So you have offenses all over running your system. You have defensive coordinators who have worked with you or worked with your disciples all over the league. So they know how to stop your system. Like you're a creative genius. You're an offensive genius. You obviously can't be a head coach. You can't manage players. You can't manage emotions. You can't manage the football game and all 3 sides of the football in general. Your whole thing is offense and you can't even be creative on offense. Tom Brady was sitting there like drooling over how creative Matt LaFleur was the whole time, using multiple running backs, using outside zone, tricking the defense into thinking it was going to be a run, but then passing. Kyle, where's your creativity? We saw it for like 1 quarter when he was having Brendan Allen throw to the outsides. That was like the only thing that was working. And then he didn't even stick with it. And to be fair, execution was bad too. But once again, execution, like you can only blame the player so much. If you're allowing those players to be on the field, then that's on you. By the way, Dominic Purdy is a guy who had 3 penalties on the offensive line, and Dominic Purdy, the rookie, has actually played really, really well on the offensive line so far this year. I didn't understand where this was coming from. Purdy has only had 1 penalty through 12 weeks. This entire time, he's only had 1 penalty up until this game, and then he had 3 in 1 game. Brady, obviously former quarterback, but he was saying that sometimes being able to know your quarterback's like rhythm with when the ball is snapped and when he is going to how long he's going to hold on to it, that can get off for the offensive line if you're not used to however that quarterback does it. He was basically saying Brendan Allen probably processes a little bit faster than Brock Purdy, which the only reason I agree with that is Brock Purdy this year has like held onto the ball way longer than he's supposed to. He's taken a lot of it's been one of Brock Purdy's done a lot of incredible things. Obviously, he's had to hold on to the ball a lot because sometimes guys just aren't getting open. Kyle Shanahan, once again, his offense has sucked and he hasn't been scheming guys open, so he's had to hold on to the ball a long time. But also, there's been times where the dump off option is available and he's, for some reason, not dumping it off and just holding on to the ball. And I think the offensive line has gotten really used to how Brock Purdy plays. And then Brendan Allen was a guy who was kind of like zipping the ball, getting it out really quick, just playing a little bit different style. And maybe that's why Purdy had such a bad game. I'm not trying to give Purdy excuses. I'm just, if you guys didn't hear that, I did think it was interesting insight where Brady said it is kind of more common when you have a quarterback switch up that you're not used to, there being more penalties on that offensive line. Once again, not giving an excuse. Like, that's on Kyle Shanahan. He should have had them working together all week, making sure that their cadence, that everything they're, listening for, or however they start to block, should have made sure all that was down pat. But I'm just saying that was the reason that Tom Brady gave for why maybe the offensive line was having extra struggles with their penalties. Anyways, I'm gonna go through some comments again. I'm seeing a lot of people I know. Steve-O. Oh, he's saying don't fall for conspiracies. That's very funny. How many audibles did Allen call? What is happening? I'm not gonna argue with you. I also don't appreciate if you're if like any content creator is critical about Kyle Shanahan or the team, and I just spoke for 50 minutes and I feel like I had a lot of like legitimate reasons, then you're just like chalked up to doing whatever Grant Cohn does. I don't think that that's like, maybe you're joking, but I don't think that that's fair. Like, I'm not just saying what someone else is saying. I haven't even listened to whatever they've said about the game yet. I'm saying I'm being critical. I feel like it's fair to be critical of Kyle Shanahan. And if you want coverage that just kisses Kyle Shanahan's ass, there's a guy who is going to give you that coverage. To me, he's dishonest. When Brock Purdy threw on Thursday the 4 passes, David Lombardi tweeted out, all good, Brock Purdy's out throwing. If you only followed David Lombardi on Friday, you'd be like, what do you mean Brock Purdy isn't going to play in the game? David just said he was throwing. Like, that is dishonest coverage. I want honest coverage. I want someone who's going to say, yeah, Brock Purdy went out. He threw 4 passes, was holding his arm, looked like he was in severe pain. He had a trainer massaging him, and then he had to leave practice early. That's honest coverage. That's not someone being negative for no reason, criticizing Kyle Shanahan for playing Christian McCaffrey all but 4 snaps. 4 snaps, every single offensive play. Christian McCaffrey, someone who has an overuse injury. His first game back, he was only off the field for 6 plays. Last week against the Seahawks, he was only off the field for 4 plays. When you have a running back that was second in the league in rushing yards, he was doing incredible. And then you have a different running back who does not have his burst right now because he's literally injured and he's suffering from an overuse injury, and you refuse to take that running back off the field. That is valid criticism. If you are friends with a wide receiver, but that wide receiver cannot get yards after the catch, they cannot get open, they cannot run a route, and you're giving that receiver more targets than guys who can get open, who can get yards after the catch, like, you deserve criticism. Kyle Shanahan is playing favorites with Deebo Samuel. Kyle Shanahan is obsessed with keeping Christian McCaffrey in the game, even when it's ineffective. Kyle Shanahan made, in my opinion, the wrong choice to play a backup quarterback that had a broken finger that he, by the way, did not report, which is against league rules. Maybe they reported it and I didn't see it. I don't want to, allegedly, I don't want to accuse him of that if that's not true. I could have not seen that Brandon Allen's injury was reported a couple weeks ago, to be fair. But I was unaware that Brandon Allen had a broken finger, and Kyle Shanahan was aware and chose to play that guy over a guy who has shown on other teams. By the way, Kevin O'Connell, the coach of the Vikings, who right now is working magic with Sam Darnold, he was the one that Josh Dobbs won 4 games with, and he was a disciple of Kyle Shanahan. So if Kyle Shanahan loves his system so much, why not play Josh Dobbs when you just saw that Josh Dobbs can succeed in your system? I think it's plenty fair to criticize Kyle. I didn't say Kyle Shanahan needs to be fired, and maybe I did. I think that there needs to be serious conversations about him. I'm not 100% that he needs to be fired. I think, like, you have to interview. If I'm Jed York, I'm interviewing Ben Johnson. I'm seeing what my options are, because Kyle Shanahan, I'm grateful. I'm as a fan who didn't see a Super Bowl and did see the 49ers, during the dark ages. Obviously, what Kyle has done with the team is better. But I also saw the Warriors and I saw they were in the dark ages. And then I saw they had a coach that got them in the mix. They were constantly in the playoffs, they were constantly competing for championships, but they didn't win championships until they fired that guy who was objectively a good coach that other teams wanted. But they fired him and then hired Steve Kerr. Sometimes, like, there's a guy who can, like, help establish your team and like make your team legitimate, but they don't have what it takes to get it over the hump. And maybe that's not true. Like, I'm not even 100% sure that I know that's true. I'm just saying, like, I think these conversations are fair to have and it's fair to question. And I think if you want false information, like if you just want to hear that the team is great, like they're probably going to miss the playoffs this year. This is not a good team. Like, I don't want to hear cookie cutter stuff. I don't like that. I like honest. I want to be able to make my own decisions. I want someone to tell me Brock Purdy went out, threw 4 passes, and then had to leave, and then me to come to my own conclusion and go, that's probably not good for his shoulder. I don't want to. I don't want to be surprised because I only followed David Lombardi and heard, oh, he's out there throwing, and then the next day I hear that he can't participate in the game. If I only follow David, I'd be like, oh my god, what happened? Because like that's you're getting dishonest coverage and then it's confusing when the team isn't living up to expectation. I would rather have honest coverage. So that's what I try to do. I'm not trying to be all negative. I have a whole thing where I do think they could make the playoffs. So I'm going to talk about that probably right now. But sorry that I got sensitive about that comment. I do think it's um a little bit unfair to only, want to hear how good the team is when they're losing. Like they're playing badly. Um but anyways, I want to move on. I will be positive now to end it off. Cuz I feel like I did a good job being all doom and gloom. But okay, the one positive is the rest of the NFC West also sucks. So right now, the 49ers going into this game, I thought that this was going to be a must-win game for the 49ers because the Cardinals had an easy game or easy schedule coming up. Seahawks, I felt like they were all the teams were 5-5 except for the Arizona Cardinals. But the problem was the 49ers have lost to all three teams in the division. So even though everyone had 5-5 records, the 49ers were at the bottom. Luckily, the Seahawks also suck. So right now, they're kind of just in the same situation they were in last week. They're in again this week. The only one that we don't know about is the Rams because Rams don't play until tomorrow. But let me look up. So what could happen, because I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't think this is negative. I think this is honest and say that I think the 49ers are going to lose next week in Buffalo. That makes them 7-5. But let me see what's the rest of their schedule. Because to be optimistic, and this is being, I'm not saying this is going to happen for sure. This is best case scenario. 49ers stop, committing penalties. They stop beating themselves in the ass. They, clean up their undisciplined nature. Brock Purdy maybe comes back and Kyle Shanahan gets Jordan Mason more involved. That if those things happen, okay, let's look at this. So they just lost the Packers. They're 6-5. They go to the Bills. I think they're going to be 7-5 after the Bills, but then they come home and they play the Bears. If Brock Purdy can play against the Bears and maybe they get the run game going and they're less like the Bears, I mean, they did just compete. They were more competitive with the Packers than the 49ers were just now. Like they lost the Packers by 1 point. It was just a block, like a block field goal. But I think the 49ers could if they could get pressure, maybe Nick Bosa's back by then because that's a home game. We know Nick Bosa doesn't want to play on turf, especially when he has his injuries. And he definitely, I don't think will go to Buffalo, because I don't think he's going to want to travel and put inflammation on his body. But the home game, week 14 against the Bears, I could see Trent Williams being back, Nick Bosa being back, Brock Purdy being back. And then you beat the Bears, and then all of a sudden you're 7-6. Then it's versus the Rams. You could beat the Rams. Now the 49ers have lost to the Rams. They lost the Rams earlier this year when the Rams didn't have Puka Nacua, didn't have Cooper Kupp. So it's in some ways going to be even harder because let me take off the comments because I get distracted. I'll read them after. But in some ways, it's going to be even harder. But the 49ers, they know what to expect because they've already played the Rams. If they beat the Rams, then they're 7-7. And this is, like I said, it's a weak division. So you're 7-7 going into the Dolphins game. Do you think the 49ers could beat the Dolphins? Like some versions of the 49ers, I think you could definitely beat the Dolphins. I also, when I look at how, if you commit in between in between 2 and 5 turnovers like they did today and over 10 penalties, then yeah, you're going to lose to any team. If you do that against the Bears, you're going to lose. And I think Caleb Williams will, throw you up one, but also your defense has to catch one. Jordan Love is throwing a turnover in every single game that he's played. The 49ers just couldn't catch 2 of them, and then the other one, like I said, it was on a free play, so it didn't really count. But he threw 3 turnovers for the 49ers. Jordan loved it. Even though he played like in some parts of this game, like I'm critical of Kyle Shanahan for throwing or for playing Brandon Allen because he had the injured hand. And although I felt like he had a good throwing arm, whenever he had to hold on to the ball, it feels like the hand that was injured couldn't keep a tight grip. But in some ways, Brandon Allen outplayed freaking Jordan Love. I wonder if I can find, because I wrote down what was Jordan Love's stats. I texted them to my dad. Did I? Oh, this is not my dad. That makes sense. Okay, Jordan Love, 13 for 23. I mean, that's like almost half of those are incompletions. So the 49ers forced a lot of incompletions slash Jordan Love is just kind of inaccurate. Also, there was a couple ones, like there was one touchdown to Christian Watson that was like in the bread baskets in his hand. It was like early on in the first half, and Christian Watson just dropped the ball. So they could have been up by even more. But he scored 2 touchdowns, and then for 163 yards, had a passer rating of 107.7. So like he had a good game, but those 2 touchdowns, it could have been 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers if the 49ers just had hands. So, but to be fair, shoulda, coulda, we don't like to play that because like I said, it could have been 3 touchdowns if Jordan or Christian Watson doesn't just, drop a football. But okay, so say you're 7-7 going into the Dolphins game. If you beat the Dolphins, you're 8-7. You lose to the Lions, you're 8-8. And then what if you beat the Cardinals? Say the Cardinals have already locked up the division and they just play their backups. You could be 9-8. I don't know if that gets you in because I don't know. Washington is kind of crumbling, so that could be helpful. The only problem is the 49ers. The reason I feel like this game does kind of solidify it is the 49ers have lost in their division, like NFC West. They've lost to every single team, but also like the Packers, the game that they just lost now, that's division, like NFC. They've lost a lot of NFC games. So I feel like if it comes down to tiebreakers, the 49ers are going to be fucked. Like, I think the Packers are going to have a better record than the 49ers at the end of this season or at the end of week 18. But even if they're tied with the 49ers, the Packers would go to the playoffs before the 49ers would because the Packers have the tiebreaker. So part of me think, I wanted to end this positive, but part of me thinks the season's over already. Also, I mean, this team fucking sucks right now. So even if they went to the playoffs, they probably lose in the first week. I think like what sucks as a fan is like we've seen the 49ers have bad streaks and then like flip a switch and then they're like some dominant team. And it's hard as a fan to be like, no, like they're going to do that thing that they do. They're going to flip the switch and then they're going to be the 49ers we know. But it's week 12 and they have not flipped that switch. I don't think they have that switch this year. I think they have too many injuries. They're too tired. Kyle Shanahan at his press conference looks exhausted. He looks burnt out. The team, like the defense that was known for being tough and physical and, line steppers and fast, like they look like stagnant. They're missing tackles all over. Like I said, 20 missed tackles in this game. The offense, in order to score 1 touchdown, it was like you're like holding on. It's like the hardest thing that anyone's ever had to do is score 1 touchdown. Like some teams score a touchdown in like 30 seconds at the end of the game. The 49ers need like 20 minutes and like multiple opportunities. Like it's just not a dominant football team right now, unfortunately. I don't want their season to be over after week 18. Selfishly, I think it would be fun to cover a team that does, snap into it, or at least even if they just sneaked in, like even if they didn't snap into it and they just sneak in the playoffs. I like football and I like watching the 49ers play football. So there is an opportunity because the rest of the NFC West also lost today. There is aside from the Rams who play on Monday. If you're watching this on Monday, then you know the result of that. But I'm recording this on Sunday night. Um, there's a possibility that they can still get into the playoffs. I kind of think this loss solidified that they won't. But I want to stay hopeful. I want these games to be competitive. I'm not expecting the Bills game to be competitive, but it would, just for fun, because we like football and we like cheering for a team. It would be fun if they could go on like a little mini win streak, win against the Bears, win against the Rams, win against the Dolphins. I think they'll lose to the Lions, but if they could like insert a little hope, that makes the games more fun. Like even this game against the Packers, I anticipated that it was going to be a loss even before I thought Brock Purdy was going to be out. I thought it was going to be a loss, but I thought it was going to be kind of like right off the bat, the Packers were just going to run away with it. The 49ers weren't going to do anything. They actually made it kind of interesting for a while because the Packers let them hang around. I like games that are competitive. Even when my team's winning, I kind of like when it's more competitive versus just like a total domination. So I'm hopeful that the 49ers can get back into it. I think Kyle Shanahan has a lot of questions to answer for. And I would think it would be such a shame if the lesson that people take away from this year is that injuries just ruined everything. This team was disjointed. They were selfish. They were individualistic, non-united from the offseason before injuries started to hurt the 49ers. I don't think this is a 2021 year where they're just decimated with injuries. I think this team has not been in a flow. They have not trusted each other. They haven't trusted Kyle. I don't know if his message has gone stale. I don't know if it's because of the overtime stuff that happened in the Super Bowl. We saw players that were like so dedicated and believed in Kyle Shanahan start to like question if they could get back there. And I think that questioning means that you need to start revamping this offense because these players are jaded and the coach is jaded. And I think these are big questions that you need to have. And there's no way that you can just try to like bring back the same guys and do it again next year. You need to have a major overhaul in players and with some of your coaches, whether that's Kyle Shanahan or whether it's, your defense and your special teams. I'm not saying what I think that should be yet, but Jed York needs to be interviewing people. He needs to have no one is off limits, no player is off limits, not Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has an injury where he can't throw the ball and they don't know why. So, like, he's not off limits. Nick Bosa's not off limits. Like, obviously, certain players like Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, like, those would take like multiple first round picks. Like, I'm not saying just give everyone away for free, but Deebo Samuel, if you could get a third round pick for Deebo, like I don't know if a team's giving up that right now. With how Deebo has performed, not just this year, but for the last couple of years, I don't even know if you're getting a third round pick for Deebo. Like you need to start. Deebo's making $26 million right now. Like he's not playing like a number one wide receiver, and he's getting paid top wide receiver money. Brandon Ayuk probably won't even be back to the start or till like the middle of next season because he injured his ACL and MCL. So it's, anyways. I said I was gonna end it positive, and then I ended it a little negative. They could still go to the playoffs. Sorry, I hope that wasn't too bad at the end. These are just free My my free flowing thoughts. Let me see. Moody had 2 good games in a row. There we go, Moody. We love that for him. I don't trust him for anything, and I do hold the Super Bowl loss against him a little bit. But, Christian McCaffrey. By the way, Steve-O, earlier you were in my chat saying Jordan Mason fumbled. Christian McCaffrey just fumbled. He also fumbled in the freaking Super Bowl. Why is it that Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel can do whatever they want and no one remembers and no one holds it against them? But then if other players, the different standards that this team is held to is going to need to be addressed in this offseason. Tom Brady was the Hall of Fame greatest quarterback in the league, and Bill Belichick yelled at him just as much as any other player. And Brady said that he liked that. He liked when every player was held to the same standard. Debo, if you're going for negative yards, if you can't run a route, if you can't get open, if you're so bad at catching the football that you cause interceptions, if Christian McCaffrey's fumbling, if Christian McCaffrey can't get positive yardage, like those players need to not be on the field. They should not be getting special treatment because they're friends with Kyle. Anyways, I didn't turn off the chat. I just wasn't looking at it. I'm looking at it now. I wasn't trying to like tell you guys you couldn't. I appreciate all your guys' comments. By the way, I have super chats on. So if you ever want me to read your comment right away or make sure your comment gets read, make sure to leave me a super chat. You guys can do that at any point. Anyways, Kyle is a dinosaur. Someone says, I like the dinosaur little memes, emojis. I think that's cute. You can see them being pushed around, mental lapses. Exactly. They look burnt out. They look jaded. You know that Drake song, I'm so jaded. That's what they are. And even Tom Brady talked about it. Like he was like, when you've played that many extra football games, like you're gonna get tired, especially when you're doing it and not getting to celebrate. Like they're climbing the mountain, and then instead of like going to the mountaintop and like getting kind of like because obviously the Chiefs have also done that, right? Like they've played many extra games, but they have the relief and like joy that like pushes them through. The 49ers, like imagine if you're like running a marathon, and then on the last mile for 4 years in a row, you like trip and break your leg. By your fifth marathon, you're like, dude, this sucks. And it's gonna be harder for you to complete that next marathon than it is for someone who like didn't trip and fall at the end. Because like the other person's gonna have this like positive, they're gonna have belief in their coach, in themselves, because they've seen themselves do it. They've seen their coach help them do it. The person who's tripped and fell every time, they're gonna have like PTSD. They're gonna be like, oh my God, am I gonna trip and fall? Am I gonna trip and fall? And that's like the 49ers right now. They're like, oh my God, we're crumbling. We're crumbling. Kyle can't do it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Is it happening again? Is it happening again? And it's like, damn, dude, this is why in the NFL, there's always turnover. They say you can't hold on for too long to these people because like they start to get jaded. You need young guys, you need fast guys, you need physical guys, you need guys who aren't getting paid, hungry, guys who are working for that check. All that's important. Papa J says, I can see us beating the Bears and maybe the Dolphins put on my I'm not sure about everyone else. That's what I'm saying though. Like if the 49ers lose to the Bills, which I think they will do, but then if they can go on a short winning streak, they could end up being 9-8. Now, I don't know if 9-8 is good enough to get into the playoffs. I kind of think it's not. Because I'm under the impression that only one NFC West team is going to get in because the NFC is really competitive. But right now, the Washington is kind of plummeting. And if Washington continues to plummet, that might open up a window for an extra NFC West team to get in. So we should kind of hope, no offense to Jaden Daniels, but we should kind of cross our fingers that that Washington continues to suck. Ashley, that would happen if not for all the injuries and disconnect. I agree. Like I said, I'm trying to be positive, but I don't know what I'm doing right now. I just hit something wrong. Go away. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna probably end this because I've been talking for over an hour. Wait. You don't see a super chat option. That's fucked up. Why not? My thing is, hold on. Let me push over here. Okay. Let me see. Why is there not a super chat option? Let me see if my thing. I think when I do this, you guys don't go away. So you can still see me even though I'm not watching you. So my video is monetized. Is that true that you can't send super chats right now? Why? The chat, super chats aren't showing up. Anyways, I'll probably figure that out for next one because I don't want to waste your guys' time. But thank you for letting me know. Because it shows from my end that my video is monetized, which means that, or I thought that meant that people can send super chats. Interesting. I'll try to see what's going on with that. I wonder if there's like something else that I'm not hitting. I appreciate you guys. Okay. Anyways, I've been talking for a long time. I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna go live tomorrow after Kyle Shanahan's phone call. Like I said, it's usually at 3. Sometimes he does it randomly earlier. I don't know if they're going to give Brock Purdy an MRI. if any other injuries are going to pop up, updates on Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, all that. I'll be going live for that, and I'll try to turn on my super chats for that. And if anyone is like from this chat watches tomorrow, let me know if it's working, because I'm going to see why it's not working and try to fix it before tomorrow. And then I'll also be going live with Tom Jensen. I know so many of you guys love with him from Sports Illustrated. We'll be going live. So make sure to like and subscribe to my channel, because I'll be giving you all the updated content tomorrow and the day after that and all week long. And I'll be a lot more positive tomorrow. This is my like post-game fan, I just watched my favorite team lose in embarrassing fashion reaction. But I'm sure that I'll be more optimistic as the week goes on. You guys saw my video with Tom last week. I was trying to convince myself that the 49ers might win against the Packers. So I can really talk myself into being positive when I want to be. I just also like to be a realist, because I don't want anyone to come to my channel and feel like they're not being given all the information that they need to, realistically know what's going on. But I really appreciate all of you guys. I didn't get to all of the comments because I had a lot to say today, but I know that there's a lot of guys in here that are my regulars, that are regularly in here, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. 21-7 Philly. Who are they playing? Let me see. That's interesting. Let me see. Let me turn off my volume so my channel doesn't get oh, duh, I'm stupid. Wait, why did I think it was tomorrow? Great. See, if the Rams lose, that's good for the 49ers. We want the Rams to lose. It sucks because Philly is also NFC, but it's not NFC West. Like if we could have both of them lose, that'd be even better. But that's good. Okay, we want the Rams to lose. Seahawks lost, right? And then let me see. This is smart. Oh, Seahawks won, but Cardinals lost. Okay, so the Seahawks, they're 6-5? Interesting. 49ers have a loss to them. So if it comes down to division record, we need a better record than the Seahawks. I don't think the 49ers are going to catch up to the Cardinals. Wow, I can't believe the Cardinals lost to the Seahawks. I'm gonna watch the highlights of that game after this. How did they lose to the Seahawks? What the fuck, Cardinals? Are the Cardinals going to collapse? Interesting. I know that Washington is collapsing because their coach is or not their coach, but their offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury. And if you guys remember with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, they would always be like really hot to start the season, and then the Cardinals would like plummet, and everyone blamed it on Kyler Murray and was like, "Oh, it's because Madden comes out or whatever video game that Kyler Murray likes to play," and so everyone said that it was Kyler Murray's fault. But then they looked back into like Cliff Kingsbury, and even in college, he had the same sort of like record where he would start out really quick or really hot, would like go on a major winning streak to start the season, and then he would like plummet in November. And right now the the Commanders are doing the same thing. But anyways, I guess in this situation we can't have both teams lose, but it's good to have the Cardinals lose. Although you kind of, I almost wonder if you want the Cardinals, like originally I was thinking you want week 18 to be competitive, because if the 49ers win, that could help them. But right now, I'm wondering, because the 49ers have lost so much, I'm wondering if actually what you should hope for is that the Cardinals lock up the division. So then they are not even competing in week 18, and they just have their backups. And like they won't care if they lose if it's already locked up. And then the 49ers might be able to sneak in that way. I'll try to look more at this, and then when I do my injury report tomorrow, I'll try to do a more thorough report on how the playoff picture is looking. It's hard because we won't know like for sure for another like 2 weeks until teams really start locking up their divisions. Then that's when you really know. But was it good for the 49ers to lose this game? To me, it was a must win game. But because the division is so bad, it is possible that the 49ers can hang in there. Hopefully the Rams lose tonight. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this game with me, or watching the stream with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and tune in tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye. Boo, boo, boo. Boo, boo, boo.